All right. I mean, and why would you want to skip the assignment? Even if I hadn't assigned it, wouldn't you?
Easy.
Shouldn't you want to do it anyways to continue your education? My understanding is that Beyonce was continuing his education last night. Missed you in 350. I missed you in 350 today. You're not in 350?
Why would he be?
I did miss you in 350 though. So whether you're supposed to be in the class or not, I missed you.
Did you see my post in the 390 slide?
No, I don't pay attention.
You should check that out before you start the recording.
The recording's already started. So I'll have to look at it after class. Okay, so the assignment was to use a picker view and essentially bring together our last two assignments, right? Using a picker view to go through and select the I'll have to look at it. Is that centipede?
Yes.
Go through and use our picker view to select which die, and based on what one's selected, have it pop up an alert, right? So now we're using our alerts, we're using our picker view. Is that what I told you to do? Ideally? Okay.
You can't remember. How do you expect us to remember?
It's on the recording. You have the recording, you can watch it. It's just creepy if I sit there and watch myself. All right. So, let's look at what we currently have going here. So now, out of curiosity, Beyonce, how much money was spent last night on alcohol? Huh? 30. That's how much you spent. Yeah. Okay, so that's like 3 hours of work ish at work. Was that worth it?
Yeah.
So like a half a shift.
Or 10 minutes on the street corner for him after the bar.
10 minutes.
Okay, so the idea here is that as we flip through these guys, it should give us a alert pop up telling us, rolling that dice. All right, so what do? We go back to our original interface controller, right? And here is our alert. So why don't we go ahead and just grab that alert, throw it at the top of our picker, like that. And then let's go back to our interface controller. Let's just steal the D4, for example. And then we'll go back into our picker. So remember that our picker we flip through and we select our value, right? Now, as it stands right now, we're supposed to click this which one button for it to actually pop up, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So inside the which one, so which one button pressed, instead of clicking out the index, we need to roll the appropriate number of sides. So what I'm going to go ahead is do up here, I'm going to say let sides be equal to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, 100. So that's our array. And then we'll just mod this by sides at bucket, what is it, self.cur selected index. Oh, nice. Types of int32 and int. Okay, so I need to make this guy an int32.
Good error message.
All right, so that should be it, right? So we'll scroll through. Let's do a D12. There's our roll. Roll again. Roll again. Let's switch this to a D100. That was the assignment? And this is what we're complaining about.
Yes. Anything more than no work is literally.
So
worse.
what happened? What happened before we had things like Blackboard that we don't like anyways? How were assignments assigned?
Verbally?
I don't remember. Verbally, but now it's assigned on Blackboard. When it's not assigned on Blackboard.
What? Yeah, I think somewhere in the student manual it says something like it's probably a catch-all, but students are responsible for anything that they missed in class when they skip class. So including verbally assigned homework assignments. Technically it was up there before it was due.
You're welcome.
See, your real complaint should have been, oh, Dr. Littman, I've worked so hard on my homework. Where do I submit it? I didn't hear one peep with that. Or if it was Beyonce.
I find it funny because he drank a lot more than me.
Hey, Evan.
And you're making fun.
Evan.
No, I've lost total respect for Axton.
Evan.
I still hold hope. Hope for you.
So what you're saying is me, Evan, and Haxton just need to get drunk tonight and drunk dial you so we can be like that? For the 470?
I would probably find it funny.
New mission in life.
I'm still trying to train Haxton to do the self-evaluation for his 470
It's
essay.
never gonna happen. He comes up to me every night when he turns in the homework and he's like, I'm not doing it.
I literally just keep giving him zeros with a note that says, submit your self-evaluation, I'll fix these.
It's not a challenge otherwise.
I mean, I get that he can do it, but follow the rules like everybody else. It's killing me.
He was explaining it, you were giving him full credit for it. I don't know, I don't check.
I think he's the type that doesn't really look at Blackboard until ever.
Wait, you mean there's actually a way to see your grades?
Somewhere on there is. So I would probably suggest at some point you do that before the end of the semester.
Oh, so what you're saying is I got a few months, okay.
I guess take it or leave it. Okay. So now that we've kind of built a whole bunch of pieces here, what we want to start doing is, well, actually, the first thing we want to start doing, has everybody in here used GitHub before? A couple of you have not. Okay. Well, let me show you the quick version of this, because I do want us to, now as our applications are going to start having multiple screens and things like that, it's going to be beneficial to start having a destination to put this up. So now the couple of you that are in 250, you get the special advantage of learning GitHub two different ways. Because in there, we're going to start doing GitHub next week, and you're going to have to do it from the command line, which is actually good. I prefer that way. But in almost every single application, the built-in source control, you see this button up here? This guy, the menu, is crap. It's actually done pretty well in Xcode. So we'll use Xcode's version. So it'll actually make GitHub pretty easy for this. So let's just use this as an example. So I'm going to go ahead over to the GitHub website. Okay, so it's github.com. If you haven't been on here before, go ahead and create an account. I'm just going to sign in. All right, so when you go into the account, it looks something like this. I'm going to go up here to the little plus sign. I'm going to say create new repository. So just in the big scheme of things, since some of you haven't had GitHub, I've dealt with GitHub. GitHub is a online website that is built around a technology known as Git, G-I-T. And what Git is, it's a program that creates a local repository for your code. You can use it for almost anything, but it's kind of made for programmers, okay? And the idea is that it creates a local folder in your directory where your code is that keeps track of all the changes you've ever made to your program. So in case you make a change, you need to roll back to an old change, stuff like that, Git keeps track of all those changes. It's most powerful in a situation where you're collaborating on a project, okay? But in here, we're not really going to use it for that tool. We're using it more for an easy way of sharing your code with other people, okay? And that's where GitHub comes into play. So we're going to be creating a local repository, storing all of our changes locally, and then at the end of the day, pushing those changes to GitHub so that you could submit the link to your code in your assignment instead of attach files or cut and paste and all that stuff. Make sense? Okay. I'll still want a screenshot, but just a link for your code is going to be sufficient. Okay, because we can probably see we're going to start getting into multi-screen applications. All right, so there's two pieces to GitHub. One is our local Git repository. Then the other part is getting that local repository pushed to GitHub. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a remote repository. We haven't even created the local one yet. All right, what actually happens is you all have created your local one. You just didn't notice that there was a checkbox that said create local Git.
False.
Okay, false. Okay, so anybody else notice it?
I did.
There's an auto checkbox that says create Git repository that we just kind of keep clicked because we assume it's right. Okay, well now you know what it's doing. It's creating a local folder for your code and keeping track of all the changes you've ever made. So now I'm coming up to GitHub here, and I'm going to create a new repository. And let's call this one diceroller watch. All right, call it diceroller watch. And you're going to make it public because otherwise they're going to ask you to pay them money. All right, and you can choose to initialize this repository with a README, but I never do that. It's stupid. So go ahead and just click Create Repository. Now, for those of you who are going to be in the 250 class, you're going to have to do all this stuff, which actually is really good. I mean, I actually prefer to do the command line. So we'll be looking at that in class next time. So for right now, don't worry about that. What you need for us in here is this right here. This is the URL of your remote repository that it just created for you. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead. I copied that. We'll go back into Xcode. I'll go to source control. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to my dice roller. It creates a default branch called master, which, if you want to have like betas of your application, you could branch off and have beta 2.0 and be working in that, and then go back and fix bugs in the original and things like that. That's where that whole collaboration piece of it comes in. We're not going to be messing with that. This is just for submitting code and having it backed up somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to click on this guy right here and go over here and do configure dice roller. All right, so this is the location of my dice roller project. That's all going to be set and stuff like that. You can go in here and create branches as well. There's already going to be a master one set. Don't worry about that. What we're interested in this one is remotes. All right, so just come into remotes. You only have to do this one time.
Super easy.
Hit the plus sign. Do add remote. Default name is origin. That's fine. Just leave it as that. Paste the address in. Okay, so we'll add that remote. Now your project knows about your GitHub. Okay, so now I'll go back into source control, and I'll go ahead and we're going to do a commit. All right, so commit shows me all the files that are in my project. Okay, and you can do a little message down here when you do a commit. So the cadence for GitHub is You add files, which Xcode does automatically for you. You commit changes to the repository. So after you've worked on your application for an hour or something like that, you might say, okay, these changes are kind of set for right now. So I'm going to commit those changes to my repository. So you might include a message. Let's say you wrote a new function or something like that. I'm going to say initial commit. Okay, this is the first time we're making changes to this guy. So I'll do initial commit in this little message box here. All right, and then I actually can push to the remote right from here if I want. Okay, so I can do push to remote, origin master. No, it's already there. Well, it's doing commit and push, where if I don't check that, it just says commit. So you want to see the two pieces. If I do push to remote, it's going to go to that remote. Otherwise, if I just commit, it's going to commit those. Then I got to go to source control, and then I push. Push pushes it to a remote repository. The remote repository is our origin master right here. So that was the same thing we could have done on the previous screen. So I'll go ahead and do push. Now it's going to ask for your username and password for GitHub. It should only ask this the very first time. You know what? Which account did I log in as? Did you notice?
No. I didn't remember my login.
Nailed it. All right, so now when I go back to GitHub, if I just click on my diceroller watch, you see that my project's up there. Make sense? So now if I were to submit this as homework, I could just click on this link and copy it into the homework thing. So you give me something to click on, and I can go in here and see all my. Well, actually, my code is back here, and it's in the extension. So here's all of our dicerow.swift. So you can view it right in here. Make sense? Okay, so for now on, when you submit your homework, I want screenshots, and then I want your link to your GitHub. All right? Make everybody's life easier. Less copying, pasting, less weirdly formatted code.
You don't like that weird stuff?
All right. So questions about GitHub? Okay. So we have our current app. Looks like this. Now, we might want to bring this kind of all together. Is there actually a way for me to swipe back? There we go. All right. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to dial in a roll. So I might want to dial in like 2d6 plus 3d8. Something like that. Make sense? So some of you who are in the 250 class, you've been doing this not in the Apple Watch version. But, so I need to build an interface for doing this. So when I select a number of dice.
Did you use force touch to select 2 dice?
Well, we might be able to, but let's kind of think about our interface here. Okay, so on my main screen, I maybe want to have the string that I'm building. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is let's go and go into my storyboard. And just for the sake of sanity, I'm going to create a new branch of my application. Not GitHub branch, but this kind of branch. So I'm going to drag main down there. Okay, so now when I run our app, it's a new blank app, even though all these other screens still exist. Okay, so this little arrow that tells you what is page 1. So we're going to start creating some file behinds for these guys. So what I'm going to do is we're going to, let's call this, is there a question?
Yeah, what's the 2 bottom ones?
These guys? Oh, that's for the glance. Secondary interface. Oh, actually, no. Is that category?
I think the one next to it is the glance.
Well, I think this whole thing's for the... I think this is the notification view. If your app receives push notifications, how it pops up on the screen. That's what that is. All right, so we're going to mess with that, but we're not going to mess with it yet. All right, so what we want to do is on this main screen, we want to have a label. Okay, so I always start off all of our screens with groups, right? It's kind of my personal go-to move. Do what makes you happy. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and stretch this group down just so, for no good reason, just I did it. All right, and then I'm going to throw a label on here. Actually, let's... Ooh, this is a good idea. How about this? How about our first page having a table of all the dice that we've added? So, quantity, type. That's our roll. Okay, so we'll have a list of all those things, keeping track of the stuff that's been there, right? And so now we can use kind of our list mentality. So we have this thing up here. So, let me back up for a second. That's what I ultimately want to do. Let me draw this. This is going to be just epic. And your homework assignment is going to be nightmarish.
We'll see.
And I'll make sure I post it right after class.
No, wait till the night before again. I think that.
All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to design this app. All right, so screen 1 and the rows don't have to be orange. I'm just using that as an example. Something like that. Okay, so screen 1 will have a list of the dice that you kind of... So if imagine you have a giant bag of dice, and you go through, you get 2d6, you have that, you get 3d8, you have that. So these are the dice that you're going to roll. The dice you're going to roll.
So, but if that's the first page they see, where are they selecting?
Yep, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yep. So then we're going to have a couple of buttons. So we'll have an add button. Actually, you know what? I should have just stolen this guy. So let's do add. And let's do roll. And actually, just for the sake of organization, why don't we put our table view there at the bottom? We'll put our add button right above that and our roll button above that. All right, so something along these lines. All right, so when we hit add, it's going to take us to a screen that allows us to select a dice and select a quantity. Okay, so let's see what that might look like. All right, so add will take me here. All right, and let's say that this guy, do I still have some dice stored here somewhere? Oh. All right, so you'll be able to flip through, pick the type of dice. Make sense? So similar to our application right now, well, actually I have it closed, but where we have our picker view where we can flip through, I think it's currently set up as what, the stack. So somehow you can choose what makes the most sense for your app, whether you want to do it as a picker, whether you want to do it as a table view, I don't care. A way of selecting your type of dice. Okay? In fact, actually, I'm going to still stick by that answer that you can do it the way you want to do it. But what would make the most sense? Flipping through this until you get to the die type you want, then hitting next, or having your dice set up as a table view? What?
Because you can see all of the dice in a table view, and in a picker view, you can only see one at a time.
Okay.
So you can't compare them.
Could you do a table view, and every time you tap it, it adds 1 to the number of dice that you want, and then so you could go through and say, I want tap 2d4, 2d6, a d8 or whatever.
Ooh. It's kind of slick, actually.
Because I just think like
They'd originally be set up as 0.
yeah.
So with that in mind, you don't even need an ad screen.
Oh yeah.
You would literally have all your dice on the first screen, and you just tap them a number of times to set it up and update what's on that screen.
Well, I have I'm doing a second screen where you just have a select dice button, takes you to the second screen, then you just do the same thing he was talking about. You tap on each dice to add the amount.
One issue you have is what if you choose the wrong quantity?
Sucks.
Rather than tapping, you have a plus and a minus and a number in the middle. So
You
you
have
have like
access to that, right?
Yeah, because you do it in your dice row.
Or we could just limit it to say a switch, and you do either yes or no on each one, on any of them.
Then you could do numbers for it.
Oh,
Yeah, the question is when you tap, are you tapping the row, or can you have a button on a row?
I'm pretty sure you can have a button on a row.
Well, you can definitely put a button on the row, but can you tap a button on the row? Or does the tap associated with the row supersede it? Definitely something we should look at, but doing it that way will break what I'm trying to accomplish with this assignment. But I actually think your solution is the better app. I think that would be kind of a cool way of doing it, just building up the thing. But what I want to do is I want to practice that communication between views. So maybe that'll be next version, our better version. So having said that, maybe this screen, let me steal this whole thing then. Shows you, just get rid of that. Whoa. Okay. Actually, we don't even need next. We just need our rows.
That's easy. I just thought, okay, so if the table row on the first screen is showing all the dice you've selected, then if you overselect, you just tap on one of the dice on the other screen and it'll remove it.
Well, we'll come up with that solution. We'll come up with a reasonable solution for that maybe next. But I want this to be a multi-screen application so that we have to deal with passing stuff between screens.
Oh, I was thinking multi-screen.
310.
You'll see with mine when I see it.
D12, so on. So all the dice options, okay? So add takes you to the screen. Any of these guys will take you to a picker. done. All right, and that picker done would then create this many, however many you selected, whichever picker you picked, of this kind of die, and it would get that over here. All right, so from here we would go back to there, and I think, do I have a... Awesome. All right, so it would go back to there, that done button, having added whatever number you put here. Make sense? To your table. Correct. Yeah, this is going to be this would be the collection of dudes you've done. Every time you hit add, so 2d6 would be created by clicking d6, then selecting 2 with the picker, then hitting done.
And then it immediately goes back to
this screen with the new guy added.
So would those be labels, or would they be?
This is going to be a table. Yep. It's be a table row. All right. So now we need to think about, how do we do this? Let's go back here to our code. And let me, actually based on that, let me come back up here and get rid of this guy, because I want to give you enough information to be able to do this. Okay, so we already have our table example. So when we click on this guy, there. Let's go and do this. I'll run this. Let's get our watch pop back up. All right, so this is our table thing. So this might be screen 2 of our application, right? Here's all the dice. When you click on one of these guys, right now it puts up an alert. What we wanted to do is have it take us to another screen. Okay, so when we come in here, let me, this guy was, I want to call this guy picker screen. So I went to my 3rd screen here, and I gave him an identifier called picker screen. All right, I think this is going to end up being how this works. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into our table example interface controller. Okay, and here's our did select row at index. And right now we're presenting this alert, but I'm going to not present the alert this time. Okay. Instead, what I want to do is I want to go to that next screen. All right, so let's see if we can figure out how to launch that next screen programmatically. So I think I have do I have storyboard? This is going to be terrible. I want to programmatically launch that. Okay, present controller with name. Okay, so self.present controller with name. The name of that guy was, what did I call it? Picker screen. And context is if I want to pass it some information. So here, let me just say, here you go. And I'll prove we got it on the next screen. All right. So any of those dudes I click. going to take me to the picker. It's going to launch an instance of the picker screen and take me there. Okay? And then just to show you here on the picker screen, down here on the awake with context, let's just print that out. I'll put a bunch of asterisks before it.
Do you have take in that any object you can take in a string?
Well, and any object is a string. Other way around. A string is an any object. Any object is like the most generic object we can have. So anything that is an object is an any object. It might scream at us here and make us convert that to a string if we know it's a string, but whatever. So now, when I come here, it's no longer going to pop up that alert, right? No longer going to pop up the alert. So when I click D6, it now takes me to the which one screen. Okay? So now when I select a which one screen, we need to have it go to a different screen, right? Now here's the deal. Let's assume that this guy's taking us back to the home screen. So I'm kind of building an interface that's very similar to what I'm asking you to do, right? So let's say I want him to go back to the original screen. So let's go here. So when I click the which one button in our picker example, that's this guy, rather than presenting an alert, let's have it do, I don't think we want to present the controller. I think we want to pop to root controller. I think that'll take me back to the beginning, which is going to be good enough for what we want to do here. That has some ramifications, but let's just make sure that takes me back. That doesn't generate a new copy of that first screen. It just takes me back to that first screen. So it is the original. All right, so that doesn't seem to actually go there. So I presented it, so do I have to dismiss first? I bet you it is going back there. I have to dismiss controller. And then pop to root view controller? Seems dangerous.
And dead.
Let's just dismiss. That should go back to the previous screen. Is this not even the right button? This is the button that, so I click on one of these, it takes me here, back there. Okay, it takes me back there. So that's how we dismiss.
Wait,
to get.
try sliding to the next screen, and then click it.
Oh, is that what I had done?
Yeah, that's what you were doing. So
Oh.
Yeah.
I was testing you. You passed. All right, so let's try the whole pop to root view controller dealy again, and let me use our app right.
About that easier.
Oh, same. I did the same thing.
Do you have to?
I think you still have to have the dismiss.
Yeah, I might still have to do dismiss. Let's click here, then click there. Okay, so let's do the dismiss. Self.dismiss view controller.
Do you have to have it going to that screen for a button or something?
Well, I mean, I could. So the pop doesn't get me there. So pop, I don't think dismiss twice is gonna, that's also dangerous, but if it works, that'll be okay for what we're doing here. Okay, so it's not.
Dismiss in that the middle screen.
Well, I'm guessing the middle screen we can actually pop. So let me do this.
You can do it will activate it.
Oh, by the way, here's our here you go, just proving that that stuff was coming through. Let me try the pop here. Pop to root. It's here. Oh, because I'm still presenting. I need to not present. Yeah, it doesn't like going back. So let's see if I can subjects. Yeah, see, we're not pushing and popping. We're presenting throughout. So these are all moldily presented things. Oh, here, can I do self dot present? Let's see, the issue is will it create a new one of these? We might not necessarily know. So what we'll have to look at next time, I won't give you the assignment yet. I want to make sure you have all the pieces rather than. So what we'll have to look at, somebody remind me, at the beginning of class next time is we ultimately want to go from any of these screens back to this screen, but have it be the original screen. Not a duplicate of it. I mean, realistically, we could probably get away with it being a duplicate of it since it all does the same thing, but we don't want to have 30 versions of screen one. We want to be able to get back to the original. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we just give this guy a name and present it, or we actually have to navigate back to it. And it might actually be broken because of our swipe to get to the second page. That might make it so that this guy's not comebackable or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So no homework for the weekend because this is what our next assignment's going to be. So if you want to start working on it, you can. But I also want to show you the singleton design pattern. So we'll look at that next time as well.
The swipe's not the issue. I was trying to just do the normal button